right. Well, good day. I am absolutely feeling blessed to be here with you all today. I was kind of bummed when I heard Pastor Marty wasn't going to be here, but that happens to me a lot, actually, when I show up as a guest speaker. Pastors just take off. I don't know. I think they're afraid of me is really what it is. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Could be, could not be. Hey, let me give you a little background about who I am and exactly what, and then we're going to talk today. So here's the plan for today, all right? So I'm going to share a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to share with you the ministry of Care Portal, how Care Portal itself works. You guys, a lot of you are involved in it. How many of you guys have heard of Care Portal? Okay, that's great. How many of you guys know what Care Portal is, even if you've heard of it? All right, that makes me feel pretty good. All right, so a lot more people raise their hand when they've heard of it, and we'll talk about what it looks like. In fact, I'm going to be bringing up some volunteers, so you get ready for that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how important community is. Not just like this community, but the overall Big C church community. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about that as well today. And so that's kind of our plan. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Aaron. I am the area director for the state of Ohio Care Portal. So if it's Care Portal in Ohio, that's what I do. Care Portal itself is a national organization. So we are actually in about 38 states right now, which is awesome. And in each of those states, we are very county specific in how we implement Care Portal. And so here in Clark County, we work with the Nehemiah Foundation, all right? So Nehemiah is our implementing partner. So I work hand in hand with Tammy Carter, for those of you who know Tammy at the Nehemiah Foundation, right? She's amazing. She's awesome. And so we work together to make Care Portal kind of happen here. And then we also have a regional manager by the name of Jill, and Jill works in Clark County, Montgomery County, Champaign County, Greene County, and hopefully soon in Miami County, right? So we're working on those. And so we have been working for the last 4 or 5 years and trying to implement Care Portal into every one of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio. So we're working on that. We're about halfway there, I want to say. Probably a little bit less than, but we're about halfway there. It hasn't been an easy charge. But so I myself I've lived in Springfield now for almost 4 years. So we moved in the middle of the pandemic in 2020 across the nation. So my wife and I was a pastor in the state of Oregon. And the state of Oregon, I found out that there's a city in Oregon up north of here. But it's not the city of Oregon, the state of Oregon. So we moved across the country. If you want to know more about why we did all of that, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. We can talk about it. But the overall reason is that my wife and I, we were just kind of taking a look at our family, and we decided that we wanted to be more in the fray. And so we moved 5 of our 6 kids across the country, basically in the middle of a pandemic. I don't usually recommend that, by the way. It was hard finding hotels to sleep in, but we made it. And so I started actually working here in Springfield as an electrician. So we bought a house on the south side of town. Still live there. We love living on the south side of town. It is interesting, to say the least, but it is where we really feel called. And then it was probably about 6 or 8 months after I'd been here, somebody introduced me to Care Portal. And when I heard about Care Portal, I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I needed when I was doing ministry in the state of Oregon. And I think you'll be able to see that. But I have 6 kids. I've got 3 of them that are in college right now at various, you would think they would go to the same school, but no, they all picked different schools, but at least they're in the state of Ohio. That's good. I have 2 at home. One is in high school and the other one is in middle school. And then my oldest daughter, we adopted her. She was a kinship placement is what I found out. But we had guardianship of her until about the age of 18. And when she turned 18, we adopted her, and she and her husband live in Oregon, and they have 3 kids. And so that's me. That's who I am. That's what I do. And that leads us kind of here into this place of Care Portal. So why Care Portal? What is Care Portal? And I don't know if you got some slides for me here. Do we have some slides? Sweet. All right, let's go to the next one. Care Portal itself is, and one of the best ways to define it is that it is care sharing technology that drives action for local churches and families that are in crisis. So what we do at Care Portal is we are looking to connect the church and those within the church who are willing to help families that are in crisis, families who are in need, families who are struggling. And we do so through agencies like Job and Family Services, through schools like Springfield City Schools, through other pregnancy resource centers, different agencies like that who have their eyes on these families, right? So they know exactly who these families are. A very interesting statistic is on our next slide here, where about 7 million children in the United States experience maltreatment. Has anybody by chance gone and seen the movie that came out, The Sound of Hope, the Possum Trot story? Right there. Okay, so we got a few. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. The Sound of Hope Possum Trot story is a big, how would I say this, is a great example of what it looks like when a church understands the need within its community and steps up to support those families that are in need. So the Possum's Trot story is actually connected very closely with Care Portal. At the very end of the movie, if you stuck around for the end, there's a little QR code, and if you clicked on that, you could have scrolled down to the bottom, and there's a Get Involved button there. And if you click that Get Involved button, it'll take you to a splash page where it says, hey, get involved with foster care or get involved with supporting families. And if you click on supporting families, it'll take you right to Care Portal. And it'll have the description of what Care Portal is. It'll help you to get involved in Care Portal, which is amazing. So across the nation, this movie is going out, and so we're expecting there to be a lot of response from that, right? But it's a powerful statement to say that 7 million children experience maltreatment, and then at the same time, every community has churches and people who are willing to help and in bold there if they knew what was needed. Here's what I really believe. I really believe that everybody is doing the best that they can, right? Everybody's doing the best they can. Whether it's you here in this room or whether we're talking about your neighbor, we're talking about families in care, right? Families that are struggling. Everybody's doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. Here's the interesting part about that is that I believe that if we give people tools to do better, they will do better. And I also believe that about the church, all right? And one of the tools that we want to be able to give this community, every church within this community, is the tool of Care Portal. Now, I say that because, and we've talked about this with your Care Portal team that's already signed up, whatever. Care Portal itself is not a ministry. Care Portal is a tool. It is a tool that is going to bring you to the very doorstep of families who are in need. But here's the deal. You're the ministry. You are the ones that connect with the families. You are the ones that bring hope. You are the ones that you bring a bed, right? And in the process of bringing the bed, you're offering a relationship. And that tool right there, I hope and pray as the former pastor within me, when I heard about Care Portal, that kind of thing will really help to excite people about getting involved in their community. But here's the thing. I am not going to sugarcoat this at all because I know we got some meetings coming up, and I want you all to be in these meetings, and I don't want anybody to be like, hold on, that's not what I signed up for. I don't want to sugarcoat this at all because doing Care Portal, being involved with families who are struggling, is not easy. It won't be easy, especially if you have been through foster care. It's going to be hard. If you have seen, if you grew up with a lot of trauma, if you grew up with a lot of struggles and issues within your own family, you're going to see it in these families, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but we don't want to run from it, all right? We want to be honest about it, and we want to be able to work through that because here's the other thing that I know. For those of you who do have experience in this, you are key to supporting these families because you have real empathy, knowing exactly what they've gone through, knowing exactly where they've been. All right. Enough of that. We'll get back to some of that stuff. But let me talk about how Care Portal works. So I'm going to need, I think about 5 volunteers is what I'm going to need. 5 volunteers who are willing to come up on stage and be on YouTube, apparently. All right, 5 volunteers. So I need somebody who will, the first volunteer is somebody who's going to represent a family in need. So do I have or am I going to just have to start pointing out people? Anybody willing? Oh, there we go. So you're either going to get coffee or you're volunteering. Okay, you're volunteering. I am digging that. All right. So what's your name? Vanessa, come on up here, Vanessa. Come on up on stage. Yeah, give Vanessa a hand. Because you guys, the rest of you guys are chickens. Okay, so Vanessa is representing, you are our child in need. Okay, so you are our family that's having a hard time. We'll talk about your needs here in a minute. All right, but before we get there, I need somebody who's going to represent the agency. In fact, let's represent a school. There we go. We got a you're even recruiting volunteers. That's what I'm talking about. Wow. Avery, you've been called out. All right, no, okay, come over here to this side. Yep. And what's your name? Annette. Annette and Vanessa, right? Annette, you're the school, right? So you are identifying this need, but we need somebody who is going to represent the Care Portal. And somebody volunteered? Avery, did you get volunteered? Avery, here's the deal. I appreciate your willingness, bro. That's one of the things. You just hopped right up. You didn't point any fingers. You didn't try to pass the buck. Avery, good job. Good job. All right, so Avery is Care Portal itself. You're just a internet-based platform, brother. That's all you are. All right? Hope you feel good about that. That's all you are. Okay. Now I need somebody who's going to represent the church. Anybody? Oh, okay. You're the point person. That makes total sense. Lacey, get on up here. Absolutely. All right. So you are, I think we can just do it with 4 people here because I don't want to, you guys are a tough crowd. I ain't going to lie. I don't want to pry anybody up. You guys might be Velcroed down. I don't know what's going on, but I'm down with that. Okay. So Vanessa is our family that's in need. So we have, oh my goodness. Annette. I was about to say that, Annette, but you interrupted me. Okay, so Annette here is working for the schools. You don't happen to work for the schools, do you? No. Do we have any teachers here in or anybody who works in the school district? We got a couple, I see. All right, awesome. You guys should know about Care Portal, right? Hopefully, if you don't, we got to talk about that. Come grab me. All right, so we've got Annette here who is identified that this family of Vanessa is in need, right? So with our schools, we are working way upstream with Care Portal, okay? So if you think about the stream of being where families fall into the stream, they have a struggle. It's really hard to get out of the stream when you're in it, right? So when you have, if you have a problem that occurs, especially if you don't have community, and that's what I find with many of these families that are struggling, if they don't have real support, when they fall in the stream, it's really hard to pull them out. So our goal with Annette here is, in the school district, is to try to identify families that are upstream. Now, here's the thing. We're not able to do that all the time. So some of the families that are further downstream, we have agencies like Job and Family Services where somebody has put in an investigation into these families. So Job and Family Services goes to investigate, and maybe they find out that the family's a great family, but they just need a little bit of help. They just need a little bump, right? They just need a little bit of support. So that's where we go. Oh, by the way, our next slide here is well, that's good too, but let's go to, there we go. So that's we've uncovered the need, right? So that's what Annette here is doing. She's uncovering the need. Now, when Annette uncovers the need, she finds out, let's say, with Vanessa's family, that Vanessa hasn't been coming to school on time, and she's really tired every time she shows up, right? And so when Annette starts to talk to her, and she's like, "Oh, you're just, really tired. How are things at home?" She says, "Oh man, my I don't have a bed. I have to share a bed, or I have to sleep on the floor, or something's going on." So Annette says, "Oh my goodness, like that's not a good situation." So we start to look into things, and we find out that sure enough, poor Vanessa here is sleeping on the floor, and so she could really use a bed. Like a bed would be very helpful. But the family doesn't have the money for a bed. They don't have the finances for a bed, especially during their tough times, whatever struggles they may be going through, maybe a loss of job or a family emergency or a healthcare crisis. Something's going on. And so they asked Vanessa's family, they say, "Hey, would it be okay if we put that need into Care Portal?" So the school district, so the family says, "Yeah, let's do it." So the school district, Annette, says, "All right, we're going to do that." So she gets our buddy here, right here, and puts the request into Care Portal. Bam, just like that. Right on the computer. Now, Levi, your job is very important. Avery, Levi is over there. There is no Levi. Let's go with that, Levi. Avery, okay, so Avery, you receive that information. You are the internet-based platform. You do all sorts of work behind the scenes, bro. You put in like all the information that Annette types in. If this is what the family needs, this is where the needs come from. This is how we can contact the family, different things like that. And then you send that out into your app or all this stuff, right? Like on the internet, it goes everywhere for this information. And then that's where Lacey comes in. So, somebody's keeping up on slides. I'm appreciating that. And so the need has been shared out to the community through Avery Levi here, Austin, whatever your name is. And then we have what's called the meeting of the need. And that's where Lacey, the point person of the church, right? And we could have brought up a fifth person who had been like your responder, right? But Lacey here, the point person of the church, says, "Hey, let's do this one. We're gonna meet the need." So Lacey says, I can help. We can provide a bed, and goes right back into the Care Portal, and then you go, and then go right there, right back to the caseworker or to the school teacher or whoever put that need in, and they say, "Okay, this is great. We will connect you with the family." And then Lacey will accept that request, provide the item, and deliver it straight to the doorstep of Vanessa, right? So there you go. You can just walk on over there, right? And then we've got, you're dropping off. Oh, wow, we've dropped off. That's a huge bed. Oh, no, stay over there, right? And so this right here is the beauty of Care Portal, because this is where the connection in the community happen, right? And the reason why I love Care Portal is because here's the deal. We're not talking about just providing a bed to a family that's in need. The bed is needed, don't get me wrong. But we're able to provide, at least offer, what families truly need, and that is community and connection. That's what we want to provide. That's why we have churches respond. That's why we need you as a responder for these churches to be able to help build relationships with these families that are in need. All right, everybody get that? You got that? Anybody got any questions about that? I ain't afraid of questions. Seriously, any questions about that? All right. Well, then give our people a round of applause. Good job. You're so helpful,
Thank you,
Stephen. It's probably one of the better volunteers we've had, Levi. All right. Now let's do this. Let me show, the next slide here is going to kind of give you a picture of the different types of needs that come into Care Portal, in case you're wondering. I would say every community is different when it comes to things that are needed, but this is the truth. Across the nation, the biggest request we have is for beds. The biggest request we have is for mattresses. Those are the biggest requests that we have because, interestingly enough, most children, the statistic back in about 2015 was that 70% of kids that are in the foster care system are there because of unintentional neglect. In other words, because of poverty or because of some family emergencies, they weren't able to provide some of the things that the state and the county say are necessary for a child to be in care. Maybe they couldn't make their electrical bill, or they couldn't purchase a bed, or they had some emergencies that happened, right? And so they weren't able to keep their children because of those things, right? So we're looking at families that are good families, but because of poverty issues, they weren't able to do that. Now, it's kind of interesting because I think about that from my perspective, and here's the thing that I have, and this is that curiosity piece that I encourage you guys to take hold of. Here's what's interesting is I moved across the nation, right? And when I got here, I got involved with church, right? I got community, I got people to support me. I got family back in my parents are in Idaho. All my wife's family, they're still back in Oregon, right? If I had an emergency and an issue, I know that I have family support who would be at my door, right? I know I have church community that would come to my help. They'd come to my aid. But here's what's interesting. I just talked to a mom just last week who said, I don't even trust my own mom with my kids, right? And so families themselves, when they get, and here's the thing, it's the hardest thing to pull yourself out of. When you get behind, getting back ahead, it's really hard. Some of you know that by experience, right? And so what we're trying to provide is we're trying to provide a little bump for these families, a little help and a support, and then also bring them into community, and hopefully on top of that, be able to introduce them to who Jesus is if they don't already know, right? Like that's the goal. That's the goal of Care Portal. If you have your Bibles, I want you to open up to the book of Romans. I want you to go to Romans chapter 12. We're just going to look at the first couple of verses. I think I put those verses up there on the screen. Romans is a very interesting book. The book of Romans was written by a guy named Paul. When Paul wrote the book of Romans, he actually hadn't been to Rome. So a lot of the times when we see the books that Paul writes, he writes those books to places he's been. So he's like, hey, how you doing? I miss you guys. It's great, it was great when we visited last, right? All this great stuff. He gives them some encouragement or some discouragement, right? So if you read 1 Corinthians, you're like, oh, he's mad, right? So there's some very interesting things, right, when this relationship with Paul and his churches. Well, this church itself, Paul didn't plant this church. This isn't one of the churches that Paul did on any of his missionary journeys. He hopes to come visit them ultimately, but he really gives them a solid foundation throughout the book of Romans of who they should be in following Christ, in following Jesus. And so he gives them some very pointed words here in Romans chapter 12. I've highlighted a couple of those here for you so you can help me out with this. But he says he says, I appeal to who? To you. Therefore, brothers, All right, okay, that's important because this gives us the context. And by the way, he didn't mean just brothers as in only the guys, by the way, right? He meant all y'alls. I'll get to that in a minute. I appeal to you, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your, you're getting it, some of you, your spiritual act of worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of, most of you are getting it now, that by the testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is his good, acceptable, and perfect will, right? So now it's interesting because I think sometimes in our Western view of the translation of this verse, we take this very personal, right? Like we're like, he's talking just to me. Now, I want you to know that if we were to dissect these verses out of here and these words out of here, that you does not mean an individual, that you means all of us together. So when Paul was saying, he was saying the you is in plural. So when Paul is writing this verse, he's not saying you individuals, he's saying you as in the plural. We know that because of the word in the Greek, but we also know that because of the word brothers. Right? So I appeal to you, brothers. So I appeal to all of you in this room, is what Paul is saying. So if he's saying that, then we should change it, right, to better understand it. So we can replace that word you with one of my favorite words, which is all y'alls. I'm not even from Texas. I appeal to all y'all, therefore, by the mercies of God, to present all y'all's bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is all y'all's spiritual act of worship. So do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of all y'all's minds. All right, so here's what I'm getting at. Here's the point of this, is that when we talk about what we're supposed to do as followers of Jesus, it's not individualistic, right? Like I am not supposed to just be right and good by myself. Here's one of the things I've learned in life. I got lots of kids. I got lots of kids that bring kids to my house, live in kind of a rough part of town too, right? Like, here's what I know about this stuff is in working with people, people thrive when they're surrounded by other people, especially other people who are thriving. Here's what you have, and I don't think you understand the strength and the power of what you have. As a community, as a church, you have the power to speak life into those who are struggling and hurting if you're willing to get outside of yourself. Because here's the thing, and maybe I'll get in trouble from this. Hopefully not. But here's the thing. People don't just come to church when they're hurting. You know that? Maybe once in a blue moon, somebody will be like, hey, maybe I should go because grandma used to take me, and so maybe I'll go when I'm hurting. But most of the time, when people are hurting, what do? They isolate. Right there. They isolate. And here's the problem, too, is a lot of churches, when they're afraid of doing the wrong thing, what do? They isolate. They isolate. There's a book that came out not too long ago. It's called, oh my goodness, I had the name of the book, but it's When Helping Hurts. You guys heard that book? When Helping Hurts. I talked to the author about this book. I heard him give a speech on it. One of the things he said, man, I wish I would have never written that book. He said, his second book is much better. You should read the second book. But here's what happened. He said, and it wasn't that what he said was wrong, but the way that it was interpreted by a lot of people was your help hurts other people. So therefore, a lot of churches quit doing what? They quit helping. He said, that's not what I wanted. I wanted people to start helping in the right ways, right? I wanted the people to start helping in ways that are supportive, ways that are encouraging for families. But many people, many churches took that and said, whoa, we don't want to hurt, so we're not going to help anymore. Here's some things. Here, let's go to this next slide here. One of the things that I want you to realize is, as we look at these verses, what we, right, what the all y'alls do as a community, I want you to realize that is your spiritual act of worship. So what you choose to do together, communal, is a spiritual act of worship. Some of us are really good at volunteering our time individualistically. Here's what I encourage you to do, since we are a community. When you volunteer, call somebody up and invite them to come with you. There's power in doing it as a community. The next thing, and this is what I think is the most important of these verses here, is number 2. It says the right community transforms people to reflect God. Listen to this, and I'm going to warn you right now that I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Oregon and also in the state of Ohio, right? And I love neurobiology, the way brains work. And here's the thing, Paul understood the way brains work even before we figured out the way brains work. But he says this in verse 2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of all y'all's minds. Did you catch that? Transformation happens in community. Here's what and we don't mean to. Nobody here is guilty of this, but sometimes what people hear from the church is, you fix yourself, you can come. You fix what's wrong with you, you can come. That's not what Scripture says, and I don't think that's what churches tell people, right? We say, come as you are. But sometimes what they see or what they believe is that I got to fix myself before I can come. And that's why people that are hurting don't just come to church. They need you to bring them into community. And the way transformation happens is when we start hanging out together, encouraging one another, coming along as we help serve and being a part of serving our community, because when we are together, it transforms us. Our brains have these things called mirroring neurons, right? In fact, have you ever walked into a room and said, whoop, shouldn't have walked in here. Nobody said a word, but you know you don't belong, right? Or have you ever walked into a place, or you have a person in your life that as soon as you see them, it brings peace to your body and to your soul, right? That's a mirroring neuron. It's the same reason why when somebody gets mad, we're like, I'll show you what mad looks like, right? It's a mirroring neuron. So if you can learn to download calm amongst yourself, you can help upload calm to the rest of the people within your community. And the more people we have in our community uploading calm to one another, the easier it will be for people to connect within our community. And we do that together. It's the most important part. And the last thing is I want to encourage you with is that when we are doing this community thing, right, it really helps us stay in step with God's will, right? That's the last of this verse 2. He says in the second part of this verse 2, be conformed to the world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may test and you may know, you may be able to discern what God's will is, his good and perfect will. Right? You want to stay in step with God's will, you stay in step with his people. You stay in step with the church. You work together. Here's the thing, is there have been times in my life where I thought I was out doing the right thing, and then I've had someone from my community say, hey man, you got to get in step with us, right? because we're all working together with this. I think sometimes we look at some of these verses and we're like, oh, let's think about what God's individualistic will is for me, right? When we read this from a Western culture, right? When we read this from an Eastern culture, we begin to realize that God's will is placed within the community of believers. Does God have specific wills for us? Probably, right? Like he puts us in places. He puts us with people. He puts us in places that we should be because of his direct will. But I want you to know too that God has a will for his community. He has a will for his people, and we will understand it better when we're working together. I absolutely love the fact that we got a Haitian church right in this building worshiping with us, right? Because that is showing community. And I pray, when somebody, I think you said that we may run into them, we may not. Dear God, I hope you guys run into them. And here's the thing is they're going to be very specific about what doors that they should use and not use because they don't want to be in your way. But I want you to get into their way, because that's what community looks like. When you're willing to step into the fray with individuals. That's what it looks like. That's what Paul's trying to get across to his people. I'm going to finish with this verse. This is my family verse. It's the next slide. I think I put it in there. Colossians 3:12-14. We have this. This is the verse that we together as a family, this is what we focus on. He says this, and the beauty of this is Paul here is saying to his Colossian people, like, I want you to put on these clothes, right? So I want you to put on compassionate hearts, put on kindness, put on humility, put on meekness, put on patience, bearing with one another. And if you have a complaint against another one, just forgive each other, right? Like community is much better when we're merciful and forgiving to one another. And then this is my favorite verse. He says, above all of these things, put on love. Put on agape, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. My prayer is that you as a church will love this community, whether it's through Care Portal, I care not. But my hope is that you will love this community together as a community and show what the true agape, unconditional love looks like. Let me pray. Father God, I thank you so much for this opportunity here today. Help us, God, as we go from here. Help us to put on all of these things. But more than anything, God, help us to remember the importance of unconditional love. And you've placed no conditions on how you love us. Help us to love people the same way you do. And it's in your name I pray.